train smarter with RPE. So RPE stands for rate of perceived expenditure. And what this means basically is that when we're using RPE to train, we're basically going to be on a scale of 1 to 10. So a RPE 1 is going to be the lightest, and RPE 10 is going to be the most difficult. And what this looks like in practice is that, let's say that you're benching and you want to do a RPE 8. What that means is that when you're performing the exercise and you actually complete RPE 8, you should have 2 repetitions left in the tank. So if you're bench pressing 100 kilos or 220 pounds, that's going to be about, if you could perform 8 repetitions of that, but at the same time in reality you were able to do 2 more of those, that's an RPE 8. But on the other hand, if you went all the way to failure and you actually did 10 of those, you would be at an RPE 10. So RPE 10 is basically muscle failure. There's no possible way you could do another repetition. RPE 9, you could do 1 more repetition with that weight. RPE 8, you could do 2 more repetitions with that weight. And RPE 7, 3 repetitions more with that weight. So that's basically RPE in a nutshell. And how we actually apply this into our training is that, let's say we have 5 different exercises in a given training session. So the first exercise could be RPE 7, the second could be RPE 8, and the third could be RPE 7, the fourth could be RPE 8, and the final could be RPE 9. And the numbers are not super important, but it's just that we have a variance and different levels of RPE for different moments. So for example, if you're a powerlifter that is doing compound moments multiple times per week, you likely don't want to be trained at too high RPE, because if your RPE is too high, you're not going to be able to recover from all of those training sessions that you have. So it might be better to put yourself at RPE 6 or 7 for your exercises or training sessions. So, and what it comes down to is that when, let's say that you're training your biceps, then you could likely be at an higher RPE, like RPE 9 or something like that, because it's a smaller muscle group and you're likely not hitting them as often as you're training your squat or deadlift, whatever it might be. The main thing I want you guys to consider is that when we're training with RPE, there's different intentions, and it all comes down to training smarter, getting the most out of least amount of effort, and giving ourselves the best conditions to recover. So one common mistake that people do all the time is that when they're training or exercising, they're going all out all the time, always RPE 10, doing the most, no pain, no gain mentality. And there's a huge problem with that, because you're pushing yourself, which is great, but if you're doing that 5 times each week, that's not going to be realistic, and it's not going to be good in the long term. Like sure, you could probably maintain that intensity for 1 week, but then your performance and recovery is going to hinder. And what we want to do is that we want to gradually increase. So we want to start here, we want to build, and then we want to recover a little bit, and then we want to build, and then we want to build. So training should always be periodized and based in different cycles depending on what goals you might have. So for example, if you're training for a marathon, you want to start from here and you want to have your goal here. And the way we get from here to there means that we basically want to gradually increase, recover, gradually increase training volume, recover, gradually increase training volume, recover. And this is where RP comes in, and it makes it a little bit easier, because if you're just going all out all the time, in theory it could look like this, that you just keep getting better and keep getting better, but that's not the reality. There's going to be a point where you're putting too much stress to yourself, and once you're not able to recover from that stress, you're going to do more harm than good. So RPE is really the key for smart training, and we don't necessarily have to use RPE to do smart training. There's many different ways to do it, but RPE is one of the most effective ones and one of the easiest ones to actually understand, especially when it comes to weightlifting, because I feel like it's very simple for someone to understand that if you're doing 10 sets, if you're doing 10 repetitions of the bench press with 70 kilos, and you couldn't possibly do one more repetition with 70 kilos after that, that was your RPE 10. But on the other hand, if you did 8 repetitions and you still have 2 more in the tank, that was an RPE 8. So it's very easy for a person to kind of gauge, and it's not going to be perfect every time, and it takes some practice, but you're probably going to realize, okay, so that was probably RPE 7 or 8, maybe 8.5 or something like that. And once you have that down, it just comes down to managing a few different factors. So if you realize that, okay, I probably could be able to push myself a little more, you could try increasing the RPE by maybe 1 point or something, and look if you're actually able to progress and recover from that. But on the other hand, if you notice that, okay, this was pushing myself a little bit too much, you can go back to your normal amount. And if you feel like, my training is not productive right now, I'm not able to recover from this, there's so much stress going on in my life and my work life, so then you might have to lower your RPE by 1 point or something like that. So it just comes down to experimenting and finding out your body, what works for you, and I hope RPE can be a valuable tool that can improve your current training and performance. Hope you guys enjoyed.